All right, hi everybody. I am Coach Dennis Stoica. Welcome back to another Modern Era Warriors podcast where we have Jeremy Butler on again today. Awesome to have Jeremy on. We just chatted for a little bit, caught up. I had him on about 4 years ago when he produced his first book. Had him on because it was a very specific about martial art, jiu-jitsu in law enforcement as a former police officer. But hey, let's get started. We're going to talk to Jeremy today a little bit about who he is, what he's been doing since then. I'll give a little bit of a bio for him. I'm excited to talk about his new book and focus on a little bit different audience that we have today too. So let's get started, folks. We always bring on like-minded people that are doing similar things, and this is going to be a good one. Dr. Jeremy Butler is a self-defense instructor, author, martial artist, former police officer, and owner of Pagoda Rebirth Training Systems. Over the last 20 years, he has used his life experiences growing up on the south side of Chicago, where I'm born and raised from as well, to teach self-defense workshops for various groups, including schools, universities, corporate teams, and organizations. He's a 5th-degree black belt in the Pagoda martial arts system, a full instructor in the Filipino martial arts, and a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's the author of Stop Resisting, the last book that we had him on for, the Law Enforcement Officer's Guide to Proven Control Tactics, less lawsuits, and building community trust through martial arts back in 2022. And we have him on today to discuss Built to Survive, self-defense lessons for the South Side. Awesome. Hey, Jeremy, thank you so much. Anything else you'd like to add with regard to the books, who you are, anything before we get started in a little bit more detail?
Oh, no, that was great. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Appreciate it too. I like to try to keep them short. Some people's bios are just like a little crazy sometimes too. So always start with the same question that I gave you before, and things can change. I'm going to ask you, what is your purpose, passion, and principles? That's your why. What's your why? What is your purpose, passion, and principles? You're of careers, multiple different things you've done in your careers so far, right? As a police officer, a professor, speaker, trainer, expert in handling physical and mental conflicts, and continue to push that, right? So not just a professor today, still teaching at Law Enforcement Academy that's near you, writing books, teaching seminars, all right, for law enforcement and civilians as well. What is your why? What is your purpose? What is your passion? What is your principles?
I don't even remember what I said last time, but I'm quite certain that it's going to be along similar lines, because everything for me, since I was a child, has been surrounding martial arts and self-defense since I was exposed to it at the age of 12. So really for me, it's about sharing my knowledge, my experiences with the world as it relates to that, right? And so this includes control tactics for law enforcement, as well as what we're going to focus a little bit more today on is personal safety for civilians. So, and ironically, that's actually where it started out for me. You know, the law enforcement side of my work came later in my journey, and so now I'm managing both worlds, both helping law enforcement actively as a police academy control tactics instructor, and now with my new book, Built to Survive, I do lots of workshops as well for civilian self-defense.
Fantastic. All right. So since we last spoke, you've authored another book. You just showed everybody, right? Built to Survive, self-defense lessons. So the South Side comes from your passion from living where you live in the South Side of Chicago, right? Grew up in the South Side of Chicago. The book and its contents focus on practical self-defense, de-escalation techniques, right? Surviving violent confrontations or violence-based, right? Surviving violence-based situations, right? But it's based on your personal upbringing and your police experiences that you have, right? So I'd like to know what prompted you to go in that direction for the book. What was the impetus? What was the start? Was there something, a specific aha moment, a situation, something, or you just said, hey, I've been doing this, I'm going to put it down on paper?
Good question. So Stop Resisting was for cops. It was written with cops in mind. And when I published that book, I noticed that I had a lot of support from not only cops, but also civilian communities. And I couldn't help but think, it was like, I really appreciate the love and support, but this book may not really resonate for those populations that aren't in law enforcement, because that's not who it was written for. And so that really sparked me to write another book specifically for my community, my civilian community. And I had to figure out, what am I going to do that's different? Like there's thousands of self-defense books out there, and it's like to a certain extent, it's like where can I be unique? Where can I make this stand out where it's not just any other same old book, or it's not just a technique book, which a lot of times is written. And so for me, I said, I've lived a lot of life in the short years I've been on earth, and the environment that I grew up in. I saw a lot of things, and I'm like, maybe I should consider taking some of those stories and those situations that I experienced growing up, or just witnessed growing up, and then see if I can teach lessons from it. So if I knew now, if I knew then what I know now, here's what I would have done based on this situation that I witnessed, or this situation that I experienced. And then even beyond that, I was just looking at, okay, what are some common situations that occur in big cities? And how would I handle those situations? Even if I didn't face them, how would I handle them modern day? And so that's what the book is really all about.
Awesome. And that's creating a community, right? The people that want to train with you, that you're around. It's you being a mentor, it's you being a coach to people, it's you providing, again, those stories, and you're trying to help people out, right? Lessons learned, right? For what you've been through too. We talked a little bit about the difference between policing and the civilians too, right? And there's some differences, no doubt. I mean, police at the end of the day may have to put handcuffs on someone and take them to jail, which is, in my self-defense that I teach when I'm not teaching cops, deputy sheriffs, state troopers, etc., federal agents, when I'm teaching my civilian persons, I'm teaching survival. It's about engaging and disengaging that violent confrontation, right? So that's different than what that law enforcement professional has to do too. But I tell you, I think there's a lot of similarities too, right? I believe that there's a lot of similarities because at the end of the day, law enforcement may engage and disengage as well. They still have de-escalation techniques. And whether you're civilian or whether you're in a law enforcement professional, you still have the same laws of self-defense, that you can't overly, just because someone pushes you doesn't mean that you can beat them to death, right? And so we're all still really dealing with a lot of the same things too. Any comment on the difference of the persons, similarities, things of that nature?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head with that. I think a major difference is like what the priorities are. For a police officer, you're responsible for, subduing, causing minimum harm necessary, but serving and protecting, as we put. Whereas a civilian, right, your responsibility really is more toward your family, protecting your family, and getting out of there, right? Getting yourself out of the situation. So you don't have to stay in the fight, for the sake of example. Whereas a cop, now, as I tell the recruits at the police academy, there could be a time where you want to completely disengage,
100%.
Tactically speaking. But generally speaking, the officers are moving toward the danger as the responsibility. Whereas as a civilian, I encourage you to move away from the danger whenever at all possible.
And I'll use the term sheepdog. It's a popular term among the military persons, right? And I believe both can be sheepdogs. That law enforcement professional is the sheepdog for the community they're serving, and that the other person could be the husband or the father or a person that's protecting their loved ones, their family, the pastor at church, whatever it might be, right? That's protecting armor bearers at church, whatever it might be, right? That they have people doing security, things of that nature as well too. So awesome. All right, so from Chicago to combat, the book blends gripping true stories of your youth and being in Chicago and your law enforcement experience and your martial arts experience. You mentioned a little bit about some of the stories. So do you have a story that you can share with us? Maybe that's in the book or to give us a little taste?
Yeah, sure. So I'd say like the genesis of my journey in martial arts came from when I got jumped. I was about 12 years old, I think, when this happened. And so I was leaving my house, going to a friend's house to play basketball. We would play basketball in the alley. I was heading to his house.
People, if people don't know what an alley is, It's kind of like a road, but not a road, and it's between the backyards of houses where we grew up. Yes.
Yeah, good point. Not everybody
Yeah.
may know that, right?
Yeah.
So we were playing the alley, and so I was heading that way. Came across a guy that I knew from the neighborhood, and he started talking. He was like, "Hey, let me see the ball," and I passed him the ball, and he was like, "Thanks." And I'm like, "What do you mean, thanks?" And so he started like acting like he was walking away with my ball, and I'm like, "Dude, give me my ball back. What are you doing?" And so we started going back and forth about him giving me the ball back, him saying he's not, and then he was basically like, if you touch this ball, I'm gonna knock you out. And so I started trying to grab for the ball, and I hit his arm on accident, and he was like, touch me again, and then we got this back and forth. He ends up, I don't know if he ends up dropping the ball or I knocked it out of his hand, and then he basically started squaring off with me, like as if to hit me. And at this point, I'm surrounded by people now. Not everybody is there to harm me, but it was kind of like people who are outside, they see a fight about to start, so they all come in. But this guy was gang affiliated. And so he starts squaring off. He goes to swing on me. I block and I hit him twice. He starts falling back. And then next thing you know, I feel overwhelming pressure on the back of my head. I fall to the ground. They start stomping me out. And then I get up and then they all scatter. And so that was my that for me, that moment kind of changed everything, right? Because the vulnerability associated with that. And honestly, I don't even think I was that physically hurt from the incident. It was just more like I was just kind of like spiritually broken. It was just like it was rough. So go ahead.
It's the reality that it could happen, right? And a lot of times people don't think it's going to happen to them. And yet it happens to someone they know. Everybody knows somebody that was assaulted. Everyone knows someone that was robbed. Someone knows it was a victim of a crime, right?
Absolutely.
But the famous words, right? It'll never happen to me. Right? It'll never happen to me. Until what? It'll happen to you, right?
Yes.
This is why I refer to, and I don't care if it's taking an 8-hour course or some type of women's self-defense seminar, something that's short duration, can still give people the confidence, right, in mental clarity in having some conversation, even giving them some of those de-escalation techniques or things that they can do to prevent maybe a violent confrontation from conversation on how they present themselves or whether they're on their phone, not on their phone, right? There's a lot of things that can be talked about even before the fight, right? So it doesn't matter whether someone's maybe a lifelong martial artist. I really promote getting something, right? And I refer to that as putting money in the bank. So that's the investment that we're putting into the bank for hopefully never having to pull it out, right? Pull it out meaning that I'm going to have to spend that now on that violent confrontation like you had to do when you're 12 years old, right?
And can I say this? I also want to say not to assume that just because you live in a particular community, it'll never happen to you. And 100%. I want to make that clear too, right? So my book is Self-Defense Lessons from the South Side. So it was written, I think the people who resonate most with it are people who are from larger cities, areas where you understand what an L train is, or you understand public transportation, because there are stories about incidents that happen there. But even if you're not from there, I think it's important to keep in mind that it's still possible, and that is a criminal's dream. For people who believe, hey, I'm in this safe area, it's not going to happen to me because of where I live.
And Jeremy, great point. We've had active violence shooters, right, at small churches in Pennsylvania, right, with Amish country, et cetera, right? So it doesn't matter whether you're in small town USA, Chicago, Baltimore, any other big city, right? You'll never know when it's going to happen to you, where it's going to happen, 100%. It doesn't matter whether you're living in the Chicago itself, one of the zip codes that happens to be more violent, or if you're living in the North Shore, something small town, and there are millions of dollars of houses, right? So violence can be everywhere and anywhere, and anyone can be violent at any point. Absolutely. The book teaches everyday people how to de-escalate violent situations, safely control aggressors, persons that are violent, how to protect your loved ones, and how to manage the psychological impact of violence as well in various different environments. It includes street, home, and workplace too, right? So it's not just it's well rounded. It goes beyond the physical and it has a versatile application, I believe, by discussing those different types of things too. I want to go into two different pieces to kind of dive into that, what I just said, right? One is beyond the physical, and the other one is, the versatile application of it. So in addition to physical techniques, people can teach physical techniques and weapon training. The book heavily focuses on situational awareness and the mental management of violence as well, right? So I like to talk about this a little bit more. That's a little bit of kind of what I said too about having conversations, whether it's a women's program, about how you present yourself, who you walk with, being on your phone. Let's talk a little bit about beyond the physical. Add a little bit more than what I've even said.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I got a couple of things for that. So one being, even in the first 2 chapters of the book, it's called Forging an Indomitable Spirit, right? And that is that mindset, that spirit about yourself that says, no matter what, I'm gonna survive the situation. I'm gonna do whatever it takes to prevail, right? And that's something that's built over time. And one of the things that I assessed after I got jumped in that situation was, what was it about me or about my spirit that said that I should be someone to be picked on, or that said that that I'm an easy target? And when you start to build the proper spirit, people start to see it and they start to feel it, right? In the way that you carry yourself. And so I think that's a really important element that I speak on. What are ways in which you can develop that spirit? Training is a big area for that.
Big piece of it.
A big piece of it. And how do you carry yourself when you're out and about? The other piece I want to say associated with this is one acronym that I use in the book is called Practicing the Arts. The arts being avoid, run, talk, strike. Right. So to me, when we're like, many books are written and we're just focusing on physical techniques, or we just focus on training. There's some of that in the book. There's some techniques, but really the big picture to me is going beyond that and going into principles. Right. And so for one, being avoid, right? That's the A in the arts. So removing the opportunity for violence through situational awareness. So if I'm in a situation where I see, and this is another brief story that I share, right? I see guys across the street and they're staring at me and we're having this eye contact back and forth. And in one situation, they flash gang signs at me, right? I took a different route. I turned the corner and I did not continue that moment, because at any point they could have crossed the street. That could have become a situation, right? So rather than me engaging with what I'm seeing in that situation, I removed the potential for the opportunity. The awareness allowed me to see, hey, there's a potential for danger over here. Now, what do I need to do? I need to remove myself from this situation as quickly as I can. So avoidance is one. Then comes run, right? So if you're in a situation where it's too late to avoid, or you try to avoid the situation and danger is rapidly approaching, don't be beyond taking off running. There's nothing wrong with that. That is a tactic for survival. And running doesn't always necessarily mean physically running, right? Running could just be removing yourself from that situation in whatever way that you can, including barriers, right? Closing and locking your door, right? Right. Yeah. So they kind of run together. The T being talk, right? So using the power of words to de-escalate. So if I can't avoid the confrontation, it's imminent, I can't get out of there. Now I want to be using distance management, and I want to use my words. I want to try to talk this person down. Hey, I don't want to fight you. I don't want any confrontation. I need you to stay back, etc., etc. Right. And it's firm, right? And it's a common principle that people refer to as preparing your witnesses, right? I want other people around me to know that there's potentially going to be a confrontation, and
you're not the aggressor, and that you're not the aggressor.
Absolutely. And I am not the aggressor. So everybody knows that. So my hands are up in a non-threatening manner. I'm like, I need you to stay back. I don't know you, or whatever the case is. And then finally, the T in arts is strike, right? And that's when the avoiding did not work. Getting out of the situation didn't work. I tried to talk my way out of the situation. It didn't work. The danger is imminent. Now it's time to strike. So I use whatever violence is necessary to survive that situation.
So I love the conversation. Exactly what I promote and teach too, right? I'll add a couple things that I see of value as well. Like, you hit training, so it still means like someone still needs to take a course. Like they need to hear you, read the book, take a. Even again, more is better than some. More is better than a little, but a little is better than nothing, right? And so get some type of training, right? And to me, the more we train, this is a common phrase that I say in my training, right? We're training to reduce the reactionary gap. So I can identify a threat and do something about it as fast as possible, whatever that might be. That might be run, that might be fight, that might be whatever that might be, right? But we're taking some type of action, right? And so the repetitions help, no doubt about it. And the other thing, one thing that we're doing in my gym to make strong people is the physicality, right? So it comes with exercise. We incorporate exercise in what we do, but it doesn't have to be exercise. It can still be some little challenges and things like that, like holding a plank for a short time and doing something together as a team still that I do too, incorporate sometimes in seminars and things of that nature too, right? To kind of get people to push a little bit more and do a little bit more than what they thought they could do, right? So I don't know if there's any little teaching tools or a trick, something that you might promote a little bit too with regard to the physicality.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one comment, and as a matter of fact, there's a whole chapter in the book called Fit for Survival. And it's all about like some of the best fitness training modalities for, if you're dealing with self-defense or use of force situations. But one that I like to do at my workshops is like a 15-second drill of all out. So it's kind of like a HIIT workout. Where they're in front of the free, I'll teach them techniques, and then they get in front of a freestanding bag or a heavy bag, and then I set a timer for it could be anywhere between 5 and 15 seconds. Which fights, like an actual confrontation, should not last that long, right? If we're talking about a true self-defense situation, if you're in there for several minutes, something's gone wrong.
Yeah.
It should be an in and out type of situation.
Engage and disengage.
Yes, exactly. So we'll do a drill where, I'll set the timer and then they just go all out on the bag, right? Throwing whatever comes to mind, just raw aggression. And then when the timer goes off, they take off running, a sprint away from the bag to the end of the line. So that's an example of simulating how a fight should actually be if we're talking about a self-defense encounter.
I love it. Right. So one of the founders of the founder, Moni Isaac, the founder of Commando Krav Maga, right? In order to get more students perhaps interested into the self-defense that I teach, right, or that we all teach, right? Sometimes I'm told, hey, you got to separate the fitness from the martial art. I know I would have more students if I did that. Right? But I also have a piece of my heart that says I need to deliver something that I know is going to be a good product as well, right? That I know. And at the end of the day, I'm happy for someone to go to a seminar where there's not physicality, it's just learning. But you and I know, I'm hearing it from you, right? As I don't care whether you're 20 years old or 60 years old or 80 years old, we need to be doing the best we can to be fit as possible also, just for our general health and in order to maybe survive violent confrontation as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Moving on to that second piece, versatile application. The tactics shared in the book are not in the ring, right? It's the street, not the ring. Same thing that I'm teaching, right, for my reality-based self-defense, right? They're for everyday environments like the street, home defense, as well as workplace safety. Anything else you can add with regard to fight in general, right? We can't pick where it's going to be and how we're defending. Again, there's no referee. No one's going to throw in the towel.
So you pretty much just said what I was going to say. There's no rules, right? And one thing that I often point out is that if you really want to know what to do in the street, you can look at the rule set in the UFC. Everybody talks about the UFC being kind of that golden standard for fighting, right? So look at the rule set in UFC, and whatever they say you can't do, that's probably what you want to be doing in the fight, right? So groin shots, eyes, throats, gouging, all of those things that are against the rules in combat sports are an element that you want to train in. Now, here's the limitation, and here's something that people have to keep in mind, because a lot of people, they say what I just said and then they run with it, and that's all. The catch-22 there is, if you think that you're only going to do that, it's going to be hard to train realistically, because you can't, like, you won't have many training partners if the only training you do is gouging them and grabbing groins. So there is an element of benefit to combat sports for sure. But I'm just saying, you know, those vital areas are really where your mindset should be when we're talking real training.
So I have local persons in the area here, the DMV, Maryland, etc. Other people that teach gyms, and friends of mine that have gyms, right? And they're amazing at BJJ. You're a brown belt in BJJ. I'm a purple belt, and I have barely put any emphasis on that compared to my reality-based self-defense, my functional fitness, my fighting fitness, my shooting, my firearms, etc. Right? I believe I'm very well-rounded. And that is my goal, to make people into integrated training, right? That is my goal for integrated training. But I have a lot of friends that downplay the reality-based self-defense. Those things may work in the groin, or they're not going to work in the groin or the eyes, right? You know, that's BS, that Krav Maga or that reality-based self-defense is not going to work, right? I don't badmouth BJJ. I train BJJ. I train grappling and striking because I'm also smart enough to know that I still may have to fight myself out of a situation too, right? The more skilled opponent I have, it's going to be a harder fight, right? And so, but that's a small percentage of the public too, right? What's the percentage of people that are BJJ black belts in the country of the world, right? 1%?
Or less, yeah.
Or less, right? And typically those people don't want to fight. Right, they're the relaxed people. They're not the people that we're going to have situations with, right? So, I just sometimes I sit back and I just watch these kind of discussions that other people have in martial arts, and sometimes I believe that I can be the bigger person, like agree to disagree, right? Because if you're downplaying, I teach people how to take guns away, knives away, and things of that nature too. You do with Kali probably also in some of your training that you've had in the past too, right?
Yes.
So. You may or may not do that. Someone may learn that or not do that, be comfortable to do that, right? Depending on how many repetitions they have in skill, maybe running away is best, right?
Yeah, but I do think the big picture with that is finding a way to train under resistance. And that's my point. So sometimes people train and they say what I said, you know, target those vital areas, but they never practice under the actual stress of a real fight because they say it's too dangerous, right, to do that. And then that's where we're missing. So I think that it needs to be the balance of having a source of training where you're actually experiencing live resistance, but being safe at the same time, right? And keeping in mind the reality of where you should be targeting. So that could be by way of protective equipment, you know, or that could be however you do it, but make sure you have both. Make sure you understand, I want to be attacking areas that can't be strengthened if I'm talking survival. But
groin, eyes,
groin, eyes, nose, throat, ears, areas like that. But if I say I'm just going to do that in theory and I never actually practice under stress, then I'm going to have a rude awakening.
You won't do it in real combat.
Exactly.
Right? If you don't practice as you play, you won't do it in real combat. And I totally agree. I refer to that as surprise attacks. So, and we can build up the pressure, or it's called pressure. I call it pressure testing. So we have a person in there attacked by different persons, one after the next. I can make you tired before we throw you in there. Lots of different ways to do that. So that's awesome that you're doing that with people as well. We're going to move on for time. What advice do you have for the beginner, a woman, or even people with martial arts experience? Because it's kind of an extension of the last question. Some people that are doing maybe only BJJ or Muay Thai or something are like, I don't need that reality-based self-defense. I'm a fighter.
Yeah. My advice would be the fight is a fight in combat sports and a fight in real life are not necessarily the same fight. Yes, if you are a trained fighter in combat sports, you definitely have an advantage over your random beginner. But I think of it as just add these tools to your toolbox. We're not saying to take away from what you do, but just take some time every now and then to consider the mental aspects of the training. Because if you're thinking that, what you're doing is going to be what you do in the ring is going to be like the street, you can have a moment where it's going to be rough, right? Like, for example, you square off with someone because that's what you're used to doing, and you start throwing punches and you're doing good, or you start grappling with that person, and all of a sudden you start feeling punches to your ribs, and then you look down and you have blood running down your shirt because you were thinking that you were used to the combat sport arena of, okay, I could take these shots to the rib, but you don't realize that this person pulled a knife out and they're now putting holes in your body, right? So moments like that where it's like, yes, I'm all for the fighters, I'm all for the combat sport, I enjoy that, but we gotta have an element of reality brought into that if your value system is learning self-defense and survival.
100%. And I have a friend or two or people again that promote like, well, then I only want a gun. And again, then I think you're missing a huge piece of the martial art. If you're truly a martial artist, not just BJJ, like, well, it's going to be that combat sport fight guy in the ring, right? I think because again, whether it's Kali or something that I'm teaching, right, I do believe that there are techniques out there, and you can get proficient at stick and knife, and that could be as little as blading, deflecting, and running away, or it could be trying to take a weapon as well, too, right? Because a gun you may not be able to get to your gun either in certain different situations. So awesome. All right. What's next for you? What's next for Jeremy as far as more studying or evaluating the art and science behind violent encounters, fear, self-defense techniques, survival mindset, etc.?
Well, I'm a practitioner and a scholar, so I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing. That being conducting research. I do a lot of research on the things that I do as a practitioner. So from the law enforcement training to the civilian work. So more writing, I don't know if I'm necessarily writing another book, but definitely articles and definitely some peer-reviewed research through my scholarship, working with the universities and such. And then from the practitioner side, continue my work with the police academy, trying to bring up the next generation of law enforcement. And I travel all over doing self-defense workshops for civilians. So if anyone is interested in seminars or training based on, my life experiences, based on those type of situations that are real. I try to keep it as real as possible, and I'm very open-minded. So a lot of when people can come to me with questions, and we can mold the training around those requests. But so a lot of travel with teaching and a lot of writing and research.
I would love to see myself where I sit. I've seen someone else that I had on their professor somewhere else as well, law enforcement professional, and they did a study on GST and from students that went through GST, and awesome study. I'd love to see something like that too. It discusses like the persons that came in, male, female, sizes, even what their expectation was like coming into the program, and like what they felt out when they came out of the program too, right? So whether that's for civilians, fear of crime, do they feel less fear of crime later? Is something maybe about victimization experience before or after learning. I mean, plenty of research that can be done from where you sit too, especially if you're getting monies from the universities to help you do it. I hope at some point too, to give you more, but awesome. Excuse me. I know you mentioned already too, conducting seminars and trainings. I know you just recently did them too from being on your social media. But how can people learn more, obtain a copy of your book, and perhaps come to one of your trainings or hire you to conduct a training?
Okay. The best place to look is www.jeremybutlerphd.com. That's where you can get sent directly to the link to purchase the book. You can sign up for my workshops. You can, submit a request if you want one for your specific group. So that's the core spot, jeremybutlerphd.com. That has all of my resources from the martial arts side to the law enforcement side to the civilian self-defense.
Awesome. Hey, so everybody, if you're watching, if you're in law enforcement, or if you have a friend or loved one in law enforcement too, right? Get the book, Stop Resisting. Amazing book, prior book that Jeremy wrote as well. Civilian Not, if you have friends, kids, loved ones, get the book, Built to Survive. Give it to someone getting ready to go off to college, or an older person maybe living by themselves. If there's a need, get it for them. so they can. It's a short, easy, quick read. You're going to learn a lot about it. If you're interested, contact Jeremy with regards to some training, whether that's businesses, personal, whatever, dojo. You have to come out and see you. Thank you so much for being on today. I want to thank you for being the great practitioner you are. I know what it's like to write a book. So I hear you I don't know if I want to write another book. I hear you. It's a lot of work that goes into it. So, but hey, hang on for a little bit. I greatly appreciate you. And everybody, you know the drill. So, hey, train hard, train smart, train safe, train real, and train for life. We'll see you in the next one, everybody. Until then, take care.